All right, if you're a parent, you know the feeling. That little voice in the back of your head, that constant pressure about your kid's future. And these days, man, it feels like it all comes down to the crazy race for college admissions. So, what's this high-stakes game really all about? Let's dive in and figure it out.
So what are you looking at right now? 3.9%. That was the early acceptance rate for Columbia recently. Think about that. Fewer than 4 kids out of every 100 who apply make it in. That one little number, it says everything you need to know about how intense this whole thing has become.
And with that kind of pressure, a whole industry has popped up. Consultants, tutors, you name it. But what's really interesting is how it's basically split parents into 2 camps. 2 totally different ways of thinking about how to get their kids across that finish line.
Which brings up a pretty wild question, right? Does this whole race actually start before your kid even learns to tie their own shoes? I mean, for some parents, the plan is locked in from kindergarten. But what if there's another path?
And that's really the heart of what we're talking about today. Think of it like this. On one side, you've got the pressure cooker. This is all tactics, all numbers. We're talking boosting that GPA, crushing the SATs, and crafting that perfect resume of activities. Then on the other side, you've got the greenhouse. In this approach, it's all about growing something real, curiosity, character, and an actual love for learning.
This quote I saw on Reddit just hits hard. It gets right to the point, doesn't it? It highlights the very real human cost of that pressure cooker style. It really makes you stop and think. Okay, so what's the alternative then?
Well, that alternative is what we're calling the greenhouse foundation. The whole idea here is that real success isn't about gaming the system. It's actually about something way simpler, but also way deeper. It's about raising a good person, nurturing honesty and sparking a real passion for learning, right from the very beginning.
But let's be real. Even if you love the idea of the greenhouse, it's so easy to get sucked back into the numbers game. The belief that a perfect GPA and test score are the golden ticket. And yeah, the numbers matter, of course they do. But the story behind them is, well, it's a lot more complicated than that.
And why is that pressure so intense? Well, here's a big part of the answer: money. The pressure cooker approach has a very powerful argument. Just look at these median starting salaries for Ivy League grads. It's a lot. And numbers like these are pretty tough to argue with. But is that really the end of the story?
Well, no. And that's the whole point. Because even the people who make a living from this stuff, the top admissions consultants, they'll tell you that just getting into a prestigious school is not a one-way ticket to a happy or successful life. Something else has to be going on.
So let's look at the classic pressure cooker checklist. It's all very tactical, right? Boost the GPA, prep for the tests, write killer essays, build that extracurricular profile. All things you have to do for an application, for sure. But notice, it's all about what you do. Okay, now let's compare that to the greenhouse checklist. See the difference? This isn't about what you do. It's about who you are. We're talking about things like self-discipline, gratitude, teamwork. These are the qualities that build resilience, the things that actually give you a real, compelling story to tell in those essays. This is what prepares a kid to actually thrive in a tough environment, not just survive it.
Okay, so all this talk about prep and checklists, it usually leads parents down one specific rabbit hole: school rankings. There's this idea that getting into the right high school is the key that unlocks everything else. But have you ever stopped to wonder what those rankings are really measuring?
And before we get into that, just take a look at these tuition costs. We're talking almost $90,000 a year at some of these places. It's staggering. And it makes you ask a really important question. What are you actually paying for? Is it a better education, or is it something else?
Because here's the thing about those school rankings. A lot of the time, they don't really tell you about the quality of the teaching. They tell you about the students who go there, things like their family's income and their access to private tutors. It's more a reflection of the student body's socioeconomic status than anything else.
Yeah, this Reddit user kind of nailed it. They said, buying a school district is more like buying your kid's peer group. And that's so true. When parents pay big bucks for a house in a top school district, what they're often really buying is the environment, the community. The people your kid is surrounded by can be way more important than the school's name on a list.
So we've covered a lot here. After looking at all this, what's the big takeaway? What should a parent who's trying to get through this whole stressful process really focus on?
I think it really boils down to this. The whole goal isn't just about getting your kid into a top school. It's about preparing them to actually thrive when they get there, and honestly, everywhere else life takes them. The pressure cooker might muscle them through the door, sure, but it's the greenhouse approach that gives them the tools to build a happy, meaningful life once they're on the other side.
And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all, doesn't it? It's not about the rankings, it's not about the starting salary, it's about taking a deep breath, tuning out all the noise, and asking yourself, what does success really mean for my kid? What does a happy, fulfilling life actually look like for them? Because that answer, that's the only blueprint you'll ever need.